That festively jarring cacophony tells you you're back listening to the Power of Three podcast on Christmas Eve 2025. I'm Kenny Smith, and today we are looking at a couple of books which were released fairly recently, written by one man, a man we've been desperate to get on the podcast for quite a while. We're talking Mr. Robert Shearman, but Rob's not on his own because we're going to have book editor Steve Cole joining us as well. Yep, the three of us are going to have a good wee chat about how these books came to be. But you may not have seen the covers yet. The Chimes of Midnight has got a black cover. Front and centre there's a clock, an old style clock in red, and it looks like there's electrical marks coming out of it, electrical sparks, you could say, to indicate that it's chiming midnight, and written in a lovely serif typeface. And it says in the top corner, "It seems to me that this is a murder mystery where the murders themselves are the red herrings. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring. But something must be stirring, something hidden in the shadows, something which kills the servants of an old Edwardian mansion in the most brutal and macabre manner possible, exactly on the chiming of the hour, every hour, as the grandfather clock ticks on towards midnight. Trapped and afraid, the Doctor and his companion Charlie are forced to play detective to murders with no motive, where even the victims don't stay dead. Time is running out, and time itself might well be the killer." Featuring the Eighth Doctor, as played on TV by Paul McGann, and Charlie Pollard, as played on audio by India Fisher, The Chimes of Midnight is the second novelisation of a Big Finish audio drama after Jubilee, also by prize-winning playwright and short story writer Robert Shearman. That's the inside blurb, and it also tells us on the back page, one of Big Finish's most acclaimed and atmospheric Doctor Who audio dramas, now reimagined in prose by its original author, Robert Shearman. I've said Chimes first because it is a bit festive, but we'll come to that shortly. The other book out is Jubilee, which has a caricature of a Dalek with its eye stalk broken off, and looks like there's lots of party streamers and things like that. And there's a mutant hanging out of the Dalek itself. And this is on a white background. Screaming is not speaking. I need the Dalek to speak. The Doctor and the Daleks. Have you never thought they are really both the exact same thing? It's time to celebrate. Let all the citizens of the glorious English Empire come together and give thanks to that mysterious soldier in time and space, known only as the Doctor. For 100 years ago, he destroyed a Dalek invasion force without mercy and became the saviour of us all. We have just one real Dalek left, kept alive in the Tower of London. All these years our prisoner, and tomorrow we are going to blow it up, just for you. So put up your Dalek bunting and raise a glass of Dalek juice. Who knows, there may be a special guest in attendance, the Doctor himself. Oh, you lucky people. Time to get this party started. Award-winning author Robert Shearman has penned a brand new, radical reinterpretation of his classic Jubilee, the best-selling Big Finish audio play that became the basis of his Doctor Who TV episode, Dalek. That's again on the inside leaf. So yes, there's plenty to enjoy there. I have to say, Rob is an absolute gent. Met him a couple of times in person, once at King's Cross Station when he was chatting with Stephen Hall, another Big Finish writer, and I was making my way back to Glasgow after a Big Finish day. And another occasion, I was actually in Biggar, near Glasgow, watching one of Rob's plays that was being directed by David Bishop, of course a Big Finish writer, Doctor Who novelist as well, and Knights in Plastic Armour was its name. And then at the interval, I switched on my phone, or I checked my phone, and I had a text message saying, "I gather you're watching one of my plays, I hope you enjoy." So I don't know how, but Rob had got wind that I was watching Knights in Plastic Armour, and he messaged, and my goodness, it was very, very good. Fantastic production, well overseen by David Bishop as well. So before we go to chat to the writers, why don't we hear the original trailer for The Chimes of Midnight?
Doctor Who, The Chimes of Midnight.
Well, Charlie, where are we?
I don't know, Doctor. It's too dark. You were supposed to be getting me to Singapore, 1930, remember?
An Edwardian Christmas. How lovely.
I never much liked plum pudding. Cook always used to make far too much of it, and we were still picking our way through it by New Year.
Oh, I love a bit of plum pudding, no?
Charlie, there'll be a death here soon.
Edith, what are you saying? Whose death?
I can make you warmer than that fire ever could.
Can't you just leave it, I said?
I only wanted a kiss.
Always been your favourite, ever since you were a little girl.
It certainly has. You'll make me plum pudding forever, won't you? Even when I'm grown up?
There'll be another murder soon, and everyone will forget me. Don't you forget me, Charlie.
Oh,
Mr. Shaughnessy, you're pointing a gun at us.
Yes, sir.
That's not a very nice way for a well-bred butler to behave, is it?
You are not to go upstairs. It is not our place. We only go upstairs when we are summoned.
please, don't leave me here on my own.
Doctor? Doctor, where are you?
Of course, it's not proof. I mean, I suppose I could be lying when I said I didn't kill her.
Oh, yes. As of course could I.
Stands to reason. Once you've committed murder, a bit of fibbing is hardly going to bother your conscience, is it?
It's mocking us. Whatever this force is, it's mocking us.
And now let's hear the trailer for Jubilee.
Doctor Who, Jubilee.
You must get some rest, Miriam. It's a long day tomorrow.
Yes. A long, glorious day. A long, glorious, exciting, wonderful, marvellous...
Miriam, that is enough.
Doctor, I can't believe you just said that.
Oh, did I put my foot in it again?
What's that?
We can play with you gently or play with you until you break. You have no right to pride.
Well, the TARDIS doesn't seem to agree with you. She's trying to move again.
What's wrong?
Well, she can't. For some reason, she's stuck here.
Stay where you are, Evelyn Smythe.
Like it or not, you will be my ally.
Doctor, the doors. They can't decide whether to stay open or closed.
Get out, Evelyn!
Good friends, you and I.
You are my prisoner.
Sleep tight. Take care of the Daleks. Stand by.
Fantastic stuff. Those are both available from Big Finish for just £3.99. So if you want to listen to those and then read the books, or read the books and listen to those, either way round works, it's up to you. So let's continue and meet the creative team behind these fantastic books.
I'm Rob Shearman. I'm a Doctor Who writer. I wrote Dalek for the TV series, and I wrote a number of Big Finishes back in the day, about 25 years ago, and have recently turned two of those Big Finishes into novelisations, The Chimes of Midnight and Jubilee.
I'm Steve Cole, and as well as writing stuff, am the creative editor for the BBC Books Doctor Who list, who had the honour of working on Rob's two Big Finish novelisations.
Fantastic stuff. So, Rob, what do you recall about the original commission for Chimes way back in the day?
I think it came about, I think I was on the second day of recording The Holy Terror, which was what I assumed was my one final, only Doctor Who audio. But it was going down quite well. I mean, Colin was, I think, a bit cross because I hadn't made the Doctor the central figure very much, which is something that I learned. But Gary came up to me and just said, "You fancy doing another one of these?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." He said, "Well, I want one very, very quickly because Paul McGann, we need to rush into the studio a second series of Paul McGann audios. The first one had just been recorded, but they hadn't released them yet. So we had a big meeting in the Fitzroy Tavern in London, the writers who were prospective for this, and I was meant to be opening the series with The Chimes of Midnight, a sort of nice comedic, non-arc heavy story, and people sat around the table and came up with their storylines, and Alan Barnes had, I think, about half an hour's worth on Neverland, which was quite daunting. And I remember I just sat there and just said, I think it's a haunted house thing where people just go around in circles a bit. And Gary said, and I said, yeah, I'll just do that. Because I had nothing else at the time. I was, at that point, writing a stage play for Alan Ayckbourn, and I was kind of stressed. And I just thought that was probably going to be enough. But everybody else was so much better than I was. And then I went away and wrote Chimes. Very quickly, I wrote it in a week, because there really wasn't the time. And I got it kind of wrong, enough that I put the arc in a bit too much, so they had to move it in the schedules to the second story. So Mark Gatiss opened instead, with Invaders from Mars. But yeah, it was horrible, actually. It was a really horrifying process, because I just didn't quite know what I was doing from episode to episode. So I wrote it, as I say, over a week. I would write Monday, I wrote episode 1. Tuesday, I would have a day of detox, trying to work out what episode 2 should be. Wednesday, I'd do episode 2. And that was how I got through the week. And so by Sunday, I was on episode 4. And I remember very much being very happy with all the cliffhangers, but then not quite knowing what to do with them afterwards. And it only dawned on me around about the end of episode 2-ish, beginning of episode 3-ish, that Edward Grove was probably the name of the house, and he was probably going to have to be the killer. Because I think that the joy of it, looking back at it when I had to listen to this so many times for the novel, was the recognition of all these red herrings I was putting in, not knowing whether there'd be red herrings or not when I wrote them up later. And it was yeah, I'd spent so many years kind of believing that Chimes was just cobbled together, and having to spend so much time with it for the novelisation, I realised it was actually pretty good, and I was really quite proud of my younger self. I listened to it a lot walking around on the South Bank as I prepared to write the novel, and I remember, this is a very embarrassing thing to say, but it's true, I remember crying with pride at a bit of it and thinking, oh, you're actually good, this is good. And thinking, well, that'll be fun to novelise. So yeah, it was kind of a sort of strange muddle at the time. It was just, as I say, it was a fairly rushed thing, but it's only ever been a source of great happiness. I mean, even the recording that we did in Bristol was a really happy day, and Paul McGann was really happy with it, and India Fisher was getting on really well with Paul, and there was a real fire with the cast. So yeah, happy times, Chimes.
Steve, do you recall your first listen to it?
Happy Chimes and Places. Yes, I do. I was listening because obviously I had overseen the Eighth Doctor in print with the ongoing adventures of Doctor Who, and then of course when Big Finish got Paul McGann, it was a new start for that Doctor, and one that was, you could actually hear him saying the words instead of reading them and imagining them in your own mind. So yes, I was very keen to know what they were going to do. And obviously they had some fantastic writers, as Rob, and they got Mark Gatiss, of course, and Paul Mars and Al Barnes. And I was enjoying it very much. And it felt like a very exciting new start. I realised, very quickly that they weren't going to use the BBC Books continuity at all, and they were going to strike their own way, which is absolutely the right thing to do. Just as the comic strip in the magazine had always followed its own course, and so we had this multiverse of Eighth Doctor adventures, and there'd be some fans who would try and reconcile all the different timelines into one in that wonderful way, and others who were saying, no, there's this one and there's that one and there's that one, and you can take your pick, or you can swap in and out of them. And the start of a range, sort of early in the range, is always a lovely time, because inevitably over time things get a little bit weighed down with what's gone before, and with the continuity with a big C. And so, yeah, I remember just feeling, very spirited and engaged by listening to Chimes in particular, because it had that marvellous sapphire and steely quality about it as well, with the the way events were kept playing out, and time seemed to be, part of the enemy. Obviously, the twists reveal the truth of the enemy, and it's a wonderful, brilliant surprise. So yeah, I think I remember actually laughing out loud with happiness when that was revealed, and I thought, what a brilliant thing.
Yeah. Then, of course, Rob, Jubilee, didn't it begin life as potentially a webcast, another death day for McManus Pugh?
Yeah. Again, it was a quick thing from Gary. He just said that, how would I feel about rush writing? And it was very rushed. 6 10-minute episodes for animation, a Dalek story. And I went and sat in a bath, I remember, and just thought, well, the best way of making this a shorts thing would be just to have one Dalek. And I went away and I sort of half pitched it, but already I think Gary was panicking, and he's right. I mean, I'm not a very fast writer, so he did real time instead, but said to me, let's keep that story. And anyway, and it seems so short and economical, and I turned it into this massively overwritten. It couldn't fit on the 4 CDs. It was. I got very carried away. The reason I did actually was because I was working at the time on my first ever TV show, which was Chris Chibnall's Born and Bred, and Chris gave me a couple of weeks off to write Jubilee. And Born and Bred was a suffocatingly nice television show about everybody being basically very, very nice all the time. And Jubilee was my response to trying to say, yeah, I'm sick of that. And I just turned everybody into an extremely grotesque, vicious psychopath, and just had such fun just trying to do this quite angry take upon what I thought was where we were worried. I was worried about at the time where UK politics was going. Obviously, that's all turned out fine. But there was a sense in which, I was just having so much fun writing things like Blue Peter sketches, which we even recorded. I mean, I'm in it. I mean, I'm the Blue Peter presenter in this thing where they're making Daleks, and that was actually in some strange way more fun than writing the actual story, which I think is a worry. But yeah, so Jubilee came. It seemed to be. Well, I think when I wrote it, I was kind of aware that it was a little bit overstuffed, which is why when I wrote straight afterwards Scherzo, that's so stripped down, because I felt a bit ashamed of how over the top I'd been with Jubilee. But Jubilee has sort of haunted me forever. I mean, I don't think I should say, I don't think it's my strongest audio by any means, but it was also the thing, of course, which Russell then picked up and thought could be a template for Dalek, and then it just keeps lurching on through my life, Dalek and Jubilee. So yeah, but yes, it was originally going to be something quite stripped down and short, and if we'd done that, I don't imagine it would ever have had the sort of weird history it's had today.
Steve, were you a fan of it when released?
Well, actually, I didn't listen to Jubilee until long after I'd watched Dalek. I just couldn't keep up with the big finishes because I was, mad busy, doing my own stuff outside of Doctor Who. So I kind of fell away from it for a while. And I think, yeah, it had that feeling that it was so proliferated. I needed to kind of try and catch up, listen in order, and then the more it went on, I just couldn't. So it became a project for the future. So it was. When I heard that Dalek had similarities to this, I thought, well, that's really interesting. And I'd seen the cover and I'd read the preview. I'd read all around it in the magazine and things, but I hadn't actually listened to it. And I think that I didn't listen to it until probably the early 2010s, if that's what we call them.
Wow.
So quite a bit later. And yeah, by that point, I was listening not to it just as an audio drama, but to clock the differences with the TV version, which is kind of not the best way to come to it. So that's why it was such a wonderful treat for me to work with Rob on the novelisation and to get another iteration that is sort of standing kind of in testament to the past, but also has kind of shored itself up into something bold and brilliant in a sort of literary form.
So when did the idea to do some Big Finish novelisations come about, Steve?
Well, I can't claim any credit for it at all, because as with all these things, Albert de Petrillo, the publishing director at BBC Books at Ebury Publishing, approached with the idea saying, do you think this is a good idea? that we take some of the best Big Finish titles and turn them into novels. I think that the idea had come from Jason Hay-Ellery. I believe he approached BBC Books. He might have been asking so the Big Finish could have done the novelizations themselves, and then BBC Books said, actually, we want to do them. I'm not sure what happened. But certainly this became a way to do two, and Jubilee was always one of those, as I recall. Or was it Chimes of Midnight that was always one?
No, it was Jubilee first.
Yeah, Jubilee first, yeah. And then we realised, I think it was, as we were looking around to see which could be done next, it was like, wouldn't it be a brilliant wheeze if we could get Rob to do both of those, because they're both so highly thought of, and it's almost like if you do one, surely you have to do the other, because they're the two that kind of like stand out, head and shoulders. So, I mean, I wasn't sure if Rob would say yes to one, so when he, and I don't know, I think, how do you, tell me, Rob, when you found out it was two, does that make it even more of a must-have in your life?
It was weird, because I didn't know which I was going to jump either, because I know I'm not always the easiest of commission, because I just want these things to really matter or not, and my relationship doing Doctor Who has been so, I keep on pulling away from it, because I just, like an arse, keep on thinking I should not muddy the waters too much. But when the offer of Jubilee came, I was interested but also a bit scared of it. And I remember saying to you, Steve, that I had worries about the content, and I remember you saying to me very early on, I think we need to be very careful about all the decapitations and all the dwarf mutilation stuff, which I was totally on board with, because I was also very wary of that. But then there's this email came, and I remember coming in to see Janie in this very office and saying, I've had this email from Steve, and it says, is there any possible world in which you would consider maybe doing two of them? And I just came in and I giggled, and she said, well, you're going to do that, aren't you? I said, yeah. And she said, because obviously doing both of them is so much more exciting to you than just doing the one. It makes you feel like you're a real show-off. And I said, yeah. And there was something suddenly really, really appealing about the idea of, just as, it's not pure ego, it's more to do with the actual ambition of it, saying, can I write these two back to back, as opposed to just doing one and then going off and doing another job. I just thought it'd be so much fun to actually say, I'm really for the next 6 months properly doing Doctor Who work.
And there's such different titles, aren't there? There's such different stories. So you've got this epic sort of, I always think of one as being, you're having this mad adventure outside, and then you're having this, you go back and you're having this adventure inside. So I think that it's...
And it was tricky, because in a way, all the time I was writing Jubilee, I knew I had Chimes looming over me. And Chimes was the one I was a bit more scared of, because of Jubilee, I kind of knew that I wanted to do a lot of interesting remedial work and see what I could now do with it. But also I'd spent time with Jubilee in different forms like Dalek, whereas Chimes had always been a story which I'd always worried had been a bit overpraised, and that I didn't quite understand why people loved it so much, and I hadn't heard it back myself for over 20 years, and I suddenly got very excited by the idea of doing it as a sort of series of proper Victorian Edwardian ghost stories, and how I could explore that. And I began going on long walks this time last year, listening to tons and tons of obscure 19th century ghost story things, not just the really famous ones, but obscure ones by E.F. Benson's brother, A.C. Benson, and trying to sort of get a sort of a feel for that. But it was tricky, because as I was doing Jubilee, I kept on thinking about the spectre of Chimes hanging over me a bit. So when I was writing Chimes, it was a certain joy in thinking, well, I've done Jubilee already. It's odd, yeah. I mean, but because they also felt so different. I think if Jubilee and Chimes had been very, very similar in tone, it would have felt maybe a bit frustrating. But I knew that Chimes was trying to do the sort of stuff I wanted to show off the sort of writer that I am outside Doctor Who, because that's the sort of stuff I normally do is more like Chimes now. So I wanted to write a proper, interesting horror story. Yeah, whereas Jubilee is a strange, satirical action-adventure thing with a Dalek in it.
Well, yeah, with a lot more going on as well. But I do like the way
I hope.
the sleeves are like, one's white and one's black, and that feels very nice as well. It feels like this is like a little set.
Yes,
of you, a little curated, roam around in your some of the Doctor Who parts of your brain, Rob.
Absolutely, and I feel very proud of both of them. I mean, I would say, and this is the thing that seems a bit arrogant to say it, but I will. I do think that they're both really good, and I far prefer them to the audios that they came out of. I think that they're better stories than they were 25 years ago. And I do feel a real celebratory feel when I see them there on my teeming Doctor Who shelf.
Did the experience of novelising Dalek help?
Yeah, I think so. I think also because I think I made a lot of mistakes on Dalek. I'm quite proud of the Dalek novelisation, but I also, at the time I wrote it, thought inevitably this would be my one and only, because I only wrote the one on TV anyway. And the problem with Dalek is it's a very concentrated story. It's just people basically running for an hour, and that's not very novelish. So I found my way into Dalek was to try and sort of do a Malcolm Hulke thing. I really wanted to explore people's backstories, and I thought that would be fun. But I understand, looking back at it now, it doesn't have much of the Doctor and Rose in it, because it's so involved in telling quirky side stories. So I really wanted to make sure when I got a second chance of doing a Doctor Who novelisation that the Doctor and the companion in both felt like they were really integral to everything that was going on. Because I think that's what makes Doctor Who work. So yeah, I think Dalek taught me an awful lot. And actually, and working with Steve did. I mean, Steve has this tremendous ability to see all the plot holes that you were kind of aware were there, but didn't feel exposed in the same way when you're watching a TV programme or even listening to an audio. So Steve will call you on it, quite rightly. There's a bit in Dalek which I was always aware of, but I had to keep on pretending didn't matter. That most of Dalek is involved in Rose and Adam running up a bunch of stairs. And yet they have to keep on stumbling upon things that give them adventures. Like there's a bit where they go and they find the Dalek in this, what Russell wanted to call the sort of killing zone thing. Why? I mean, they're just going up some stairs. Why would anyone design a base where you're going up and then you have to, at that point in the staircase, cross the entire length of the base to get to the other side of the staircase? You wouldn't at all. And Steve, I remember writing a note at one point just saying, why are they doing that? And my response inevitably at the time was to say, I don't know. I mean, that's what I said to Russell at the time. Russell insisted. And you have to try and find ways out of that, because I think suddenly the different pace of reading a novel does require you to investigate much more fully things that you just let slide on TV. And so, yeah, coming to Jubilee and Chimes, I went in there knowing I was working with Steve and knowing actually what a joyous thing that was. I mean, I'm not saying it's because Steve is here. It's just the truth of it. It became always a really happy, collaborative thing, but I knew I couldn't get away with just flanneling and just saying, well, it's Doctor Who. It doesn't matter, does it? Because it does matter, and that's how stories work.
No, exactly.
So, Rob, you mentioned earlier a few changes required for Jubilee, and of course there's fairly significant ones. It's definitely a reimagining, and of course we also get a scene in Chimes where the Doctor actually leaves Edward Grove and goes out into the snow.
Oh, yeah,
which was quite, I found that really exciting.
Oh, good. Pardon me. I think I just worried about the claustrophobia getting a bit too much. I thought I've got to. Again, it's that thing that sometimes I think the problem is actually is you come back to your original scripts and you hear the audio, and you're constantly now arguing with it. And there's a bit in Chimes I got really angry with, where the Doctor is about to go outside in the kitchen, and all the kitchen staff say to him, "Well, no, don't." And he says, "Oh, all right." I think, why? Don't just say no, do it. And then I thought, well, what happens if he does? Because I don't know what happens if he does, because I haven't thought that far. So a lot of, I think, part of the fun of going back to those old scripts is that you're in this, as I say, you're in this sort of perpetual argument with all the decisions you've made. sometimes you'll have a scene in which the Doctor and Charlie are having, a discussion, and the Doctor says one thing, and I think, well, what if he didn't say that? What if instead he was a bit more relaxed about it, or a bit spikier about it, or just didn't say the predictable thing that now feels like he would say? And so you keep kind of wanting to provoke yourself because you get cross with your younger self for being lazier with the responses that you gave them. So, and at times it can really pull you up. I mean, the bit which I remember very, very much, I was on one of my long walks, and that's how I write my first drafts, is in notebook. And I was doing the bit in part 4 where you get the revelation of Edward Grove as the killer. And then I wrote, actually for a laugh, to myself, the Doctor saying, yeah, but that's obviously nonsense, and I'm now going to tell you who the real killer is. And I went home and thought that was quite funny. And I told my wife, who then just said, who's it going to be then? I said, oh no, I'm not doing that. That was just for me. She said, no, but I think that's probably a useful thing that you've said that, because it now does feel quite predictable. And I thought, oh yeah, all right. So I had to go right back over the last week and a half's work and start retooling it. And I began to realise that I'd much rather it was about a story about Edith having an imagination suppressed by where she was working and the conditions she was working in, than about a house that achieves sentience through a time loop, because that seems rather silly. But you can still have all that, but it becomes part of her imagination. So it becomes, part of the fun of novelising, I think, is, especially if you've got a big gap, the fact that you've got decades across since the first script you wrote, is that you ought to be, I think, interrogating yourself quite a bit and just saying, yeah, but that's fine, but what would I do now? And that becomes, I think, part of the joy of doing it, and actually makes it a worthwhile process.
For you, Steve, was the book coming in right at the end when it was finished, or were you getting it in sections? Rob would send half the book ready for notes. How does this process work?
I always prefer to have an entire manuscript there rather than, if an author requests that I read like the first third or the first half, then I will do so, and feedback, and I hopefully offer some encouragement. And that does happen. It's happened twice in the last year, but I prefer to let an author write what they want to write and then kind of come to it knowing that I've got the whole thing there. And it's always, I love the Dalek novelisation, and it was one of my favourites to work on. So I was very excited to have Rob back, because I knew that we had a lot of discussions over the prose. It was, and I think it was very fruitful, because we both came away, happy with what we were doing. That was what I felt. Because Rob is accessible to thoughts and suggestions, but will also counter any that he disagrees with, and that's exactly as it should be. It's a rigorous but very friendly and creative exchange, I think. So having the whole thing there, I have to say, my edits, on some books can be extensive, but I think these are some of the lightest, well, particularly Chimes, actually. I think that was one of the lightest.
Yeah, Chimes was remarkable.
Yeah, one of the lightest edits.
I was so relieved by that.
Well, as was I. It was like a reward for me. But and it's great when you can just really, as an editor, you can never just fully sink into a novel and just enjoy it as a novel, which is why outside of editing, I don't read fiction, because I'm always editing it. I can't switch that off. I end up reading biographies or graphic novels or something I don't work on every day. So for me to be able to read and then think, oh, I'd better make a note here. Just to show that I'm still reading it, because I haven't actually written anything in the margin here. So I find myself writing lots of positive things like, oh, I love this, or oh my God, how good, or, not in a kind of a gushing way, because you're genuinely touched by it. So yes, for me, knowing that I've got the entire thing there and I'm not going to have to break off allows it to be a more as immersive an experience as an editor can have, without having to break off and then wait for a month or two to get the next section to be able to get on with. As I say, sometimes it happens. With Eric Saywood, I got Revelation of the Daleks, I think, in four blocks, because he was literally writing it and I was editing it and giving him the rewrites, and then he would be writing the next bit during that time and give me that while he was writing rewriting that, I was making edits on the, and so it went on as a rolling process. But it's much more enjoyable and much more. It's better for the book as a whole if it's all there and you can attack it in one go.
Robert, I noticed there's a very cheeky reference to the Sixth Doctor referring to a gentleman in a black leather jacket confronting a Dalek. I thought that was very funny. That made me laugh. Completely unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just get these silly ideas and you just think, well, it's possible, and I wouldn't blame them that BBC Books might say, yeah, we'd really rather you didn't have a new series flash forward at that moment. But you sort of get the idea, and it sort of eats away at you, and you want to try and surprise. In that instance, the reason for that, and I'm sure Colin won't mind me saying this, and he won't know. Anyway, I'm very fond of Colin, and whenever I see Colin at a convention, we always catch up, and he gives me a hug and tells me I'm putting on weight, which is true. And he's very blunt about it. And I'll say, well, you can't talk, Colin. And he'll say, yes, but I'm much older. And he's right. And that makes me feel bad. And then once in a while, in fact, every time I see him, he'll always talk to me about Dalek and about how much he hates it. And he'll say, because he said, I'm very fond of Jubilee. And I say, good. And he'll say, well, effectively, it's Jubilee. And I said, I know, Colin. And he's like, yeah, but it's like Jubilee, but just made really nasty. He said, I can't bear that scene where the Doctor just tortures the Dalek and sneers at it. And I say, And he'll say, I mean, you didn't really write that. I say, no, I did. He said, no, I just hate that. And I say, yeah, I know, Colin, you've told me this for the last 20 years. Every time I see you. And the thing is I think Colin has a point. I really do. But the point that we were making when we did Dalek was not the point I was making when I wrote Jubilee. And it becomes, I think, that moment heavily pushed for by Russell, who made me go further and further with it every time. And rightly so, is that the Doctor has become this very, very cruel figure. And I really wanted there to be a sort of reference in Jubilee, which has so many crossover points with Dalek. And of course, you're writing for an audience who know that. And you want to give them that sort of, not necessarily metatextual thing, but you want them to recognise that you know that you're going back to the same well again. And I wanted there to be a reference to Colin's Doctor refusing to accept the scene that Colin himself can't bear. Because I thought that was not just funny, but actually quite right for his Doctor. And there is something, I think, worth pointing out about that. And I just, and I hope it's more than just a sort of funny moment. I mean, I think it is. I remember giggling as I wrote it, because it is obviously a bit of fan forecasting. But I think Colin himself would approve. I told Colin I was doing it. And Colin was very pleased that I put that in about his own Doctor rejecting what he doesn't like in my TV script.
It must have been a delight for you as well, Steve, when you get these little changes that aren't in the originals.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice to have the little sly little nod to what's happening. I know Rob had some doubts initially with coming to Jubilee because he had written Dalek, the novelisation, as well as, and would there be covering of the same ground? Because inevitably you're getting inside the head of a Dalek. And the fact that I think he creates a new experience and, having the alternative fascist Britain to play with as well adds so much richness to it. This awful cobweb of cruelty around the Dalek is shut away, but is exercising its own empire over the little spiders in its casing that it both understands and hates and appreciates all at once. And so I think you have this wonderfully rich mixture going on there. And when it kind of looks ahead, and because it's perfectly placed to do that, is in this little nexus point of where you can look around. So it works as a literary device. It works as Doctor Who. So it's perfect, that part, I think.
Yeah, and the ending, of course, of Jubilee is very different as the Dalek gets a new job.
Yeah, and that seemed right. I'm not trying to attack the old audio because I'm aware because that seems palpably unfair because people do love it, and also it is still on sale, and I don't.
It doesn't take away from the audio. That's it. It's just
no. But I always felt that, when I listened to Chimes on my walks and I was breaking it down, I never stopped feeling proud of Chimes. I always thought, I think there's some work to do making Edith more central to the conclusion of Chimes, but I still thought this was pretty good stuff. With Jubilee, about halfway through episode 3, I thought, whoa, you've gone down a weird path now, and I don't really think that this holds up. And by the time you've got the Doctor standing on a stage giving a long speech, I just thought, well, I know in the book he's going to say nothing. I'm going to have him to say no, because it's annoying. It's really annoying to have someone lecturing you and just saying, oh, here's a twist. All you humans, you're like personifications of the Daleks. And you think, oh, come on. So I think by the time you get onto the Dalek ship and you've got lots of Daleks chatting with each other, and I thought, oh, this is one of the reasons that the strength of Jubilee was that I wasn't doing this. So it seemed important to me that scene on the Dalek spaceship became a bit bigger and it allowed the Dalek to have some sort of journey on it as well, as opposed to what really was there. And Steve was very encouraging for that. I mean, I did a version of it, and I think that the biggest notes you gave, Steve, were, we can go further in this chapter. And I had so much fun when it came to it, actually saying, I want this to feel a bit more focused and a bit more action-packed and a bit more moving in a way, because I think that Dalek is he's a nice character.
Yeah.
And he's very different to the Dalek in Dalek, and I grew to rather like him as a character. I really wanted him to pay off better. So yeah, I think the episode 4 equivalent of Jubilee, and there's also a weird chapter which I do as a sort of series of what ifs, which is in part in response to my realising that I didn't know what to do with them at the time back in 2002 when I wrote the audio, but I wanted there to be a sense of a weird ambiguity about these characters and where they may have ended up within the melee of all the Dalek death and that sort of invasion, and that was fun to do as well. So yeah, I'm really proud of that final quarter of the book of Jubilee, in a way that I've always been kind of ashamed of the final quarter of the audio.
There's plenty of brutality in there. There's lovely, just ruthless moments with the Doctor actor getting pushed off stage, and then the Evelyn actress sort of quickly taking a new job, thinking, I'm not going there. It's wonderful. It's just, the humour in there is wonderfully dark and very much up my street.
Thank you. And I hope you didn't miss the dwarves, because you've got that other actor now. He takes kind of the place of the dwarves, which I think is a bit funnier and a bit less problematic for so many reasons as well. And I think his death's quite funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's still quite a brutal book, Jubilee, and that was a concern going in, was that it's such a brutal audio, and that isn't where Doctor Who is anymore. I mean, it was, this is the thing about, Steve worked obviously on so much during the Wilderness years. BBC Books range is Steve's, and you could do things that you would never contemplate doing now, and that isn't because the show's become less bold, it's because things change and your audience changes, and what you would do with that audience is a different responsibility. And I did worry that there was a way in which I could make Jubilee quite toothless, but at the same time I think Jubilee is as brutal a book as the audio. It just does it in a different, hopefully in a subtler way.
I would think so. I know you were concerned that it might lose some of its bite, but I think it actually accentuates it, because you
I think so too.
Approach the material, in such a way as to convey a lot of the brutality in ways that aren't quite so full on and visceral as the.
And I think if anything, I think Chimes is more brutal. Actually,
it's got some very, very scary body horror stuff going on in that one.
Yeah. I mean, I again, it's that. It's because I wrote Chimes straight, having delivered Jubilee and worked on the notes with Steve for Jubilee first. And you go into Chimes saying, okay, can I try and address all the issues that I now know from working with Steve? I mean, let me try and answer them before I don't want to waste Steve's time with stuff that I know he's going to ask. So I'd be trying to address it. I mean, silly things like, because I tend to write short stories much more, which are very, very focused, I hadn't really thought with sustained prose before how important the holding on to a point of view between scenes is. So sometimes I would I'd just stray. And with Chimes, I was really focused upon that because I knew that was something that Steve would come back to. And it was about, with Chimes, always saying, okay, I now know that with the brutality here, I'm going to have to be answerable for this. And there was one bit where I self-edit. It was still I thought maybe too much, but we got away with it, which was Mary having her knitting needles in her forehead, which just appeared there as a death. And at one point in my draft, it was in her eyes. And I knew typing it up, I said, well, I'm never going to get away with that. So there's really no point in my even bothering Steve with it. But if I have them in the forehead and they're like sort of little antennae and they wiggle around, then that might be quite funny. And I remember, Steve, you said that would maybe one thing that we might fall on. But we got away with it. No one ever seemed to query that one.
No, which was good, because we have to be with there are certain guidelines that the BBC studios apply, which involve depictions of certain kinds of violence. As an example, at the end of the Evil of the Daleks novelisation of Fraser Hines, there was a moment where I think right at the end, Max Stable is grabbed by the throat by Waterfield, and there was some blood mentioned. That all had to go. So we weren't allowed to have the strangulation. We weren't allowed to have actual flowing blood. But you could do other stuff. And it's just finding a way to kind of present the violence in a way that is okay for the family audience, in the same way that it's always been with Doctor Who on television or in any media, I think. So yes, it's always good when you sort of think we might have to watch out for that. But no, we got away with it.
Yeah.
Just earlier when we're all holding up our copies of the books, none of us have got the Big Finish original cover art editions, which are beautiful, and I'm so annoyed because I missed them.
I didn't even know they were happening at first. I mean, I was doing a meeting in Sweden because I came straight from Chimes into doing quite a long process readapting Pride and Prejudice for a Swedish theatre which has just opened, which is quite a different job. And I came back on a plane one day, and as I hit Wi-Fi again, I went on Twitter and people were moaning to me about the fact that the Big Finish editions had sold out. And I hadn't even known they were going to be on sale. I mean, I was aware that there were going to be Big Finish editions, and because we were trying to find what the illustration should be, but it was all so fast. I didn't get to buy any. I mean, I think I would have.
I can't believe you haven't got any.
I mean, I have been gifted some copies, so
good.
I'm grateful. But it was that funny thing that I did think that was fast. I mean, it's rather flattering, really, that they sold out so quickly. But I did think that was I mean that was hasty. But I'm not. But it isn't my place to complain. I just I mean, I'd probably, if I'd known, I would have probably bought 100, and then I could have bought a house with them. Because they're going for quite a lot on eBay, I know.
It's like the Big Finish Dalek action figures of a few years ago, so
really?
They go for ridiculous figures. But yeah, so Rob, for many years, Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without the Chimes of Midnight for a lot of Doctor Who fans. That must be a really nice feeling for you, and now that can be amplified with people reading as well as listening.
It's it's hard to express just how surprised, but also how thrilled over the years I've been that this audio that I rush wrote back in 2000, has people writing to me every Christmas. People I don't know reach out to me on social media, Twitter and Blue Sky now, and just saying we're having our annual Chimes listen, and they talk about plum pudding. And I think, how did we get to this stage? I mean, this is very odd, because I never thought there would be an audience, a mass audience for any of these things. I mean, at the time we did all this, of course, the show seemed extinct. I mean, I didn't ever imagine the show was going to come back, and I could only honestly see that the fan base would dwindle over the years I think writing Jubilee which was again for the 40th, it was very much with that sort of inner cynicism about the idea that this would be, I think, our final big anniversary. I couldn't imagine that in 2013 we'd all still be huddled around 12 Big Finish releases a year and the output of the novels. I just thought it was going at some point just to collapse in on itself. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm not answering your question, but Chimes, it's always become this sort of very happy thing that totally accidentally I wrote something which means so much to people. And that was the fear of doing the novel. In some way, was that I was now going to come along and ruin that. But I don't think I have. I mean, I really hope that people read Chimes around Christmas, around their Christmas tree, eating their mince pies. Not plum pudding, because it's frankly disgusting. Yeah. But the mince pie, yeah, it's horrible. And I don't think in any way that I describe plum pudding with any affection in the book. I think people should avoid plum pudding. But I hope that Chimes becomes like a sort of Doctor Who version of a Christmas Carol. I mean, that would be obviously a tremendously egocentric way of looking at it, but that's what I would love to happen. I'd love Chimes to become something in book form that has the...
I think it is the ultimate Doctor Who Christmas story, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so many Doctor Who Christmas stories anyway, of course. But I'm very proud of Chimes being up there with them.
Yeah, well, I always get the vinyl edition on. My wife and daughter are usually in bed about 9:30, 10 o'clock. So I'll pop on Chimes, pop on the vinyl edition, sit back with a glass of Baileys and just listen in the darkness with the tree lights on. And that's me. I'm happy as Larry.
I've never heard the vinyl one, It's funny because I haven't got a record player. I have got a copy of the vinyl, but I haven't got a record player to listen to it. I know it's been cut a bit, but I don't know where.
It's been recut, so there's different cliffhangers now, but it's all...
Yeah, I mean, that automatically makes me very angry. So I don't want to know how they've done that. But no, it's lovely that it keeps on going on, Chimes. Yeah.
The gift that keeps on giving. And when I was reading the Chimes novel, I had the soundtrack from Russell Stone playing in the background, because Russell's a friend and I have a copy of it, so that was nice to have those lovely piano riffs going as well.
It's gorgeous, that music, isn't it? I bumped into Russell earlier in the year. I was just about to start writing Chimes. And of course it was all very, very hush-hush, but I still told him anyway because I felt that he was an insider and he needed to know. Yep. And I said to him, the hardest thing about doing this is that I can't find a way of novelising your music, because your music is what makes Chimes, gives it its heart and its atmosphere. And I've now got to try and find a way with words of doing what you do so well. And I think Russell Stone's music for Chimes is gorgeous, and does so much of the heavy lifting with that audio. So yeah, but I think we found a way.
Yeah, I know.
I think it works. So Steve, you commissioned 2 from our Rob. They've gone down very well. You must be happy with the end result.
Extremely happy, yes. I mean, it's lovely when you sort of start off at something. I mean, I had no doubt that we would get something wonderful out of this. The fact that they were both able to come out at the same time, not one and then the other, but they come out, because I do think of them as companion pieces. It's a trip from one side of Rob's head to the other, really, which is in itself beautifully Doctor Who-ish in execution. So yeah, I think the both. I mean, I can't even say what my favourite is because I love both of them in different ways. But this is a range. The Doctor Who book range is very different. Of course, it encompasses everything from editing Peter McKinstry's prose about his experiences working on the show to working with first-time authors on their original stories, or with the TV script writers on their novelizations, and or something like this comes along. And while some of the projects can feel like real work, occasionally you're lucky enough to get something that makes you feel like this is a really happy place to be, and it's not work at all. It's just something that happens, and that's...
Well, it's fab. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah.
Yeah, it has been, honestly, that's what I love about it. It's been the happiest process And it really did feel for several months like this was just a sort of a nice, exciting, celebratory job. And then coming to Steve and actually being really eager to see what Steve might think. I mean, especially for Chimes, because we just worked on Jubilee so closely. And I was really, really keen to see what Steve made of Chimes. You know, it's sending something off to a friend and hoping that your friend likes it, as opposed to in your head when you're writing. Sometimes you just think of the people, the editors and publishers, as these nameless people who are just going to be staring down in judgment.
Indeed. Well, we'll have to do something again sometime, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, possibly.
Wouldn't that be nice?
It's odd. I mean, writing these, I had it in mind as I was doing it. I thought, again, this is my final bow. But it was such a happy thing that, I mean, I now feel I've got more Doctor Who in me at the moment than I have done for many, many years. So, yeah, it'd be fun to find something else.
Fingers crossed. And hey, let's hope for some more Big Finish novelisations too.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about these fantastic books, and I wish you both a very Merry Christmas.
And you too, Kenny, thank you.
Very happy Christmas to one and all of you at home.
There we go. Absolutely fantastic. A real highlight of the year for me, that, getting the pair of them together, and it was such a pleasure listening to them. And you can hear in the background Russell Stone's original score for the Chimes of Midnight, which just sort of adds to the feel of it all, so I hope you've enjoyed listening to that again. So, we're out of time, because it is nearly Christmas after all. If you're feeling festive and generous, please feel free to leave a review for us on your podcatcher of choice. It would be hugely appreciated. That would be a lovely present if you want to say thanks for all the episodes we've put out this year. We're on Twitter, at Power of 3Pod with a number 3, and we have Blue Sky as well, where we are at Finished Zine. And don't forget, we have a Facebook group as well, and no doubt I'll be popping on the covers for these novels, and well, I suppose they are technically novelisations, and we'll have both editions on there, the mass market one and the Big Finish covers, and I might even pop on the various Chimes covers as well that have been issued, as well as the original Jubilee. So, we're going to have to finish with a song now, aren't we? And what could be more appropriate than the song that Edith Thompson sings early on in the Chimes of Midnight? It's Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Until next time, have a Merry Christmas. Bye bye.